moments we may have limitations to that. There may be some things that we're not going to be fully capable of, that we may not be able to accomplish. One of the things that I learned many, many years ago when I first started into my practice was that the body has an amazing capacity to heal. I learned that from a patient of mine by the name of Jim. Jim came into my office one day, and I remember as he walked up, I saw him walking up the walkway to my office. I had just finished with a patient, and he walked in, and I knew immediately that something was not right with Jim. I invited him to come in to an exam room where I sat with him and asked him how he was doing. And Jim said, I don't really know. I asked him a few more questions, and I said, Jim, would you give me just a minute? I will be right back. I stepped into the other room, and I called one of my colleagues at the hospital and asked if Jim could come over for some immediate tests. And they said, absolutely. I came back in, and Jim was sitting on the exam table, and I said, Jim, I've called the hospital, and I'd like you to go have a few tests. And Jim lowered his head and very quietly said, I have cancer, don't I, Dr. Hill? I said, Jim, I believe that you do. It was evident to me that he did. Jim went to the hospital. They ran the tests. Later that evening, his wife called me. And she gave me what they had discovered, that Jim not only had cancer, but that there was nothing they could do. And that he had a week or two to live. They told Jim to go home, do everything you want to do over the next week or so, because within another week, most likely, you will pass away. I remember his wife asking me a very direct question. Dr. Hill, is there nothing you can do? And I thought carefully and said, there's nothing I can do. Those days are gone for me. There's always something we can do with the essential oils. There's always something we can do when we empower other people in the way that we have talked about throughout the whole of this conference together. Now, to be honest with you, because Jim was now out of my care, he was in the care of someone else, and they were managing his death. I lost track of Jim. I moved on with my other patients, and it was hard. I knew Jim, and I felt badly. To myself, I thought, I've never seen a funeral for Jim. Maybe they just didn't want to publicize it. I would like to have gone. About 6 months later, I went to the bank on my lunch hour, and I was standing in the line at the bank to make a deposit, and behind me, I heard somebody say, Dr. Hill, how are you? And I turned around, and it was Jim. And I said the dumbest thing I've ever said in my entire life. I said, Jim, I thought you were dead. It's a true story. And he said, I'm not dead. And I said, how is that possible? And he said, I went home and I went to bed, because after all, I'm going to die. And he said, and I laid there for a couple of days. And then my wife came in and we talked, and I thought, well, this is just how it is. It'll get worse for me, I'm sure. And then he started thinking to himself. He said, Dr. Hill, I thought about something. And what I thought was, what if they are wrong? What if they don't know the answer the way that I know the answer? And he said, so I got up out of bed, and on my own, I figured out what was the best thing for me, and here I am, and I don't have cancer. That was a remarkable moment for me in understanding a simple principle. Your body has an amazing capacity to heal, especially when we give it what it needs. Now, we've spent some time in our previous discussions with one another, and you've heard from others that there's different pathways that we can approach our own health. We know that there is genetic consequence, that you and I are predisposed to different things in our own environment, and especially as it pertains to our health and our wellness. That having been said, we know that we cannot change your genetic coding. Can't change your genes, can't eradicate them, but you can, and we've given you information on how you would be able to not have them express. Just because there's a familiar history, or just because you have some type of a predisposition, does not mean that that is your determined outcome. There's a common belief that is held in medicine. I remember learning this very well. When does somebody die from a terminal disease? The day you diagnose them. That's generally when most people make up their mind to say, there's nothing I can do. My friends, that is not true. You and I have a unique ability to do something more, to do something powerful. And it is as unique as you are as an individual. And so I want to give you a few tools, a few things that perhaps you could consider and think about that will help you in that journey to decipher some of the things that you need to do or that you can do on a daily basis. Now, I know that we've talked a lot about the wellness chart. It really is your daily approach to health and wellness. And I did some thinking on this yesterday evening. I was going through some of my thought process on what I might share with you today, and I had another thought in regards to this. Now, I know that you've learned a lot about Microplex BMG at this point, and of course the Omega Plus and PB Restore. Do you like those products? Are you excited about those products? Can I share with you one that is missing? And you're familiar with it, and I've had some discussions back home in our corporate offices just before I left of this is missing. And I want to bring it to the front and center with you here today. While these are extremely important, I want you to understand that your body cannot function appropriately without enzymes. Now, your cells are unique in their ability to do remarkable things. Remember, we've learned that the very core and central part of your health is your individual cells and how well they do or do not function, which then interprets into how well we do or do not support them. Vitamins and minerals, and we've given you all these wonderful delivery systems for phytonutrients and all the other things that you've learned. But if we're missing that essential piece, that is a critical loss for you. Now, as well as you think you might eat, I'm telling you that your food source, just like mine, is largely devoid of any meaningful amount of food enzymes, digestive enzymes, which normally come from our food supply. But as is the case for most of us, we don't have any meaningful exposure. Your cells have this remarkable ability. One of the things that many of your cells can do is that they can manufacture enzymes. And there's two different types of enzymes that are critical and important for you and I to understand. One is that we need digestive enzymes. I need to be able to metabolize the nutrients and the other things that I have that we have shared with you is important for driving the cellular processes. Remember, oils turn on the process, the nutrients drive the process. But vitamins and minerals cannot function without metabolic enzymes. So your cells can either produce digestive enzymes very efficiently or metabolic enzymes very efficiently. And there is an inverse relationship associated with them, that if I don't have digestive enzymes, my cells are going to say, I need to produce digestive enzymes. And metabolic enzymes then diminish substantially. And even though I'm producing digestive enzymes, now I don't have the metabolic enzymes that I need to interact with the nutrient density that I now have. Does that make some sense? And that's problematic for you. Consequently, if I have enough of the digestive enzymes, then my body can produce metabolic enzymes. and the vitamins and the minerals and all of the phytonutrients and everything that you learned about so wonderfully yesterday from Alexandria and from Alex and others becomes meaningful for you in driving the process of your health. So please, I'm asking you, be sure that you use Terrazyme. I cannot give you metabolic enzymes. Your body has to produce them. So we give you a good component of digestive enzymes, which needs to be a part of this core discussion. Yes, I'm sending a message to all of my colleagues who are here from Utah and other places. We cannot be subversive or amiss on some of these most fundamental things. So Terrazyme is an active part of what you do on an everyday basis. Now I want to talk with you about informed care. I'll give you a little more definition on this wellness chart. If we really look at all of the things in the lower part of the chart, so we have nutrition and digestion, metabolism and movement, rest and managed stress, reducing toxicity, those are elements that are really focused on how do we best support and protect the cells within our body. The products and things we have in there are directly linked primarily to functioning of the cells, either because we're reducing stress, for example, or reducing toxicity, or we're giving a good amount of nutritious elements that we have to function appropriately. If we look at informed care, which we never really ever talk about, that's referring to whole body systems. Remember, we go from cells to tissues, and from tissues to organs, and from organs to systems within the body. Now you think about systems can be a number of different things, the nervous system, for example. But in this case, I want to talk with you about a consequence of some of the systems that are happening within our body, and I want to talk with you specifically about inflammation. Now, you may not believe that you have inflammation. We've touched on this briefly, but it's recognized at this point that about 90% of all illness, all things that we face, there's an undertone or a foundational element of it that is uncontrolled and unwanted inflammation. So let's divide inflammation into two categories. The first category is what we call acute inflammation. This is necessary. This is healthy for your body to have. This is how we control and manage infections. It's how we control and manage microbe. It's how we deal with toxicity within the body. It's how we deal with injury and protect tissues so that they can heal. If we don't have acute inflammation and we have some type of an injury or we have some type of infection, those can become life-threatening. So we need inflammation. Inflammation is not your enemy in this form and in this framework. That having been said, kind of is your enemy if it goes beyond that. So let's talk about how you support good, healthy inflammation as a part of your daily routines. And one of the primary things you can do is to keep your immune system strong. I've said this multiple times that immunity is an interesting thing, partially because there are so many different things that impact and affect your body's immune capability. Are you still with me? You okay? I feel like I'm rushing through this because I've got so much I want to tell you. Immunity also is needed and necessary because it's either impeding us from progressing forward or it is helping us to progress forward. So keeping your immune system strong is really not that difficult. Yesterday, one of the things that you learned about was glutathione. I want to give you just a little more detail on glutathione. Glutathione is a modulator and can also be a limiting factor for your immune system. And it's a limiting factor both in protection and repair. Let me give you a couple of examples of that if I can. Let's talk about protection. Now, one of the things that's interesting with glutathione is that glutathione has and works with your body's mitochondria, for example, for energy and other things. It's a limiting factor there too. Your cell cannot function without glutathione. But your cell also cannot function without large amounts of iron. And so there's this delicate balance that has to always be maintained. If we don't have glutathione, which is commonly referred to as the master antioxidant in your body, directed specifically to protect your cells, then iron is able to become oxidized and we damage our cells. We damage the DNA of the cell. We have problems with replication. We have problems with mitosis and all the other things that come associated with that. And so it's important to have that delicate balance. Now we have a repair activity, and that is if our cell is damaged, the cell has something known as a damaged DNA response. And glutathione plays a critical role in helping the body, helping the cells to be able to identify when that needs to be incurred. Are you all with me? You got that memorized? No, you don't. Of course you don't. And I don't expect you to have it memorized. Here's what I need you to know. I want you to understand, first, it's very critical. The other problem with this is that the older you get, so I know some of you are, I'm looking at you carefully. You're looking at me with eyes that say only one thing. Man, that Dr. Hill, he's a beautiful man. I know what you're saying. Yeah. First off, I know that's not true. I look in the mirror every single day. One of the things that I experience right now that many of you don't is that the older you get, the less glutathione your body's actually going to produce. I cannot give you, I get on the internet from time to time where I'm reading through things that suggest you need a glutathione supplement. Do you know I can't give you a glutathione? I mean, I can give one to you, but it won't do you any good. Your body is going to break that down. It's made up of 3 specific amino acids, and your body will break that down, and then maybe it will or maybe it won't re-assimilate it, because amino acids play an important role in your body where they're factorial, meaning that they're utilized wherever they're needed the most. So I can't give you a glutathione supplement and have it be guaranteed, or even in any way have it become biologically active and valuable for you. Instead, we have to figure out other ways for that to happen. Uniquely enough, your cells produce their own glutathione. Remember, we've talked about upregulating or downregulating cells, and then if we have the nutrients that we need. Well, one of the key messengers associated with glutathione production is a molecule known as D-limonene. You heard about D-limonene yesterday. This was a really interesting study that was done where they took D-limonene and they gave it to people who had tumorigenesis, skin mutations. And what they discovered is that over time it was very helpful and very beneficial for them to have this D-limonene. But they also discovered something else that was of interesting consequence. Now remember what you just learned. I just shared with you that among other things, glutathione protects your cells and also is important for proper cell function, for repair. It's not just protection, it's protection and repair through the damaged DNA response. What they found with glutathione is that it substantially increased the level of glutathione present in the cells. And where do you get D-limonene? Well, you know you can get it from the omega product, Omega Plus, but you can also get it from the basics of a citrus oil. One of the things that I really enjoy when I'm talking about things like this is that I'm not giving you difficult things to do. A good daily routine for you is to figure out how you can use a citrus oil every day. I think it would be great if you added a little bit into your water. I think it would be great if you diffuse it in the air. I think it would be great if you were to apply it to the bottom of your feet. But find a method, find a way where consistently you can receive a citrus essential oil. Now I know in doTERRA, we have a lot of citrus oils. Started out that we had lemon oil, and that was great. And then we had orange oil, and that's fantastic. And then we got grapefruit oil, and that's wonderful. And then we got white grapefruit, and then we got pink grapefruit. And then, didn't I see a new one yesterday, a new grapefruit from you? I think so. And then we got mandarin oil, and then we got green mandarin, and then we got red mandarin, and now I think we have yellow mandarin. And then we just go on and on and on, and then we have lime, and then we have bergamot, and we can just keep going. The list goes on and on. And what I really think you need, if you want my honest opinion, is 1 or 2 citrus oils is all. But we give you that many to choose from because you have preference for what you like in terms of aroma and what you like in terms of taste. But can I give you the 3 that I think you should highly consider in the context of what we're talking about today? It's either grapefruit or wild orange or tangerine. Now, lemon is a close second. Lemon has somewhere between 70 and 80% of pure D-limonene. But when we're looking at these 3 essential oils, it can be as much as 95 to 98% pure D-limonene. Now remember, it's the whole of the essential oil that gives value, but when we're giving you that much D-limonene, we are increasing the benefits that you can receive specifically from D-limonene. So if you're not using the citrus oil, I ask you to start doing that on a daily basis. So immune support, here's just a functional, easy thing to consider. We do have the On Guard chewable tablets. This was another development of our good friend, Dr. DeBell. Thank you, Alex. We appreciate your good work that way. Thank you. We should be happy about these things. What we did was we took the value of On Guard and we added to it some nutrients that are cofactors or benefits associated with improving your body's immune capability. And it works extremely well, including an immune modulator so that our immune system is functioning properly. These are things you can use on a daily basis. Think of that as immune nutrition. I love the On Guard capsules. I hope you're using them. It's a mainstay when I travel. If you came to my wife and I's room right now, you would see that we have some On Guard capsules and a lot of other products sitting right there because there are daily routines that we need to follow. What the On Guard capsule is, I was really happy when this was formulated. We took On Guard and we added oregano and we added melissa. I get asked the question all the time, why did you add oregano and why did you add melissa? When we start talking about different types of microbes that we're exposed to, I'm looking at the clock, I'm sorry. I've got just a couple minutes left and I'm not even started. That's the problem that we have. I added those 2 specifically for viral type components because beta-caryophyllene is found in the oregano, but it also has phenols, which are very powerful. Beta-caryophyllene is a sesquiterpenoid. And then we also have melissa, which also has a lot of beta-caryophyllene in it. Black pepper is another one in case you want to know. And so think about doing these things on a daily basis, targeted response with the essential oil, systemic response with the capsules, and then of course we have the On Guard chewable tablets. That's different than chronic inflammation. Chronic inflammation is secondary to our lifestyle choices. I could say poor lifestyle choices, and in fact I did, because that is the driver of inflammation that in and of itself, no matter what we do, will damage and destroy tissues. I've gone from protection and repair to destruction and loss. How many of you know people, I'm just curious for my own curiosity, if you know somebody with diabetes, would you just, whether yourself or somebody you know, would you hold your hand up and keep it up in the air? If you know somebody with arthritis, would you hold your other hand up and keep it up in the air? If you know somebody that has cancer, would you stand up? Keep your hands up, keep your hands up. Would you stand up as well? I want you to look around the room right now. Look around the room and look at what we're witnessing. There's a reason why I say this is core and central to the things that we do to not only help ourselves, but help other people. Those are all inflammatory diseases. I know we attach other messaging to them, But those are all inflammatory diseases. Those are all challenges that are affiliated with inflammation that is being fed in an unhealthy way. Now let's talk quickly about the endocannabinoid system as some of the remedy that we can look at. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here because I know you're familiar with Copaiba essential oil. It's one of my favorite. I love going to the Amazon. I've been there several times. I love meeting with our growers there. I love the chemistry of this essential oil, and I love its interaction with the endocannabinoid system. Now, one of the things that I love about this oil is that even very small amounts of this oil can have very profound benefit for you. As little as 5 milligrams can be very calming and soothing to the tissues if you were to apply that topically. To give you some perspective on these numbers, 200 milligrams can be very supportive of glycoproteins in the body. 200 milligrams is a little less than 4 drops, right at 4 drops of essential oil. A typical drop of essential oil is about 40 milligrams. And so these are very small amounts, which sends some clarity to us that it's not always the best idea to use as much as we can and everything that we can possibly think of. When we're struggling, when we're trying to overcome something, that's the time for us to become very focused and very narrow in what we're doing with the essential oils. Not narrow in the concept of I'm just not going to use them, but narrow in that I probably don't want to use 10 or 15 different oils right now. I want to get very focused and very specific, and Copaiba demonstrates that very well. What we interact with within the body is something known as a CB2 receptor. And the CB2 receptor is on the surface of our cells. It's a specific receptor. Remember, we're talking about with the essential oils, them being chemical messengers. Those are mostly found in cells of the immune system. They are replete in the immune system. We do find them in many other places, which we'll talk about. But then I would also add to your daily routines, I would think about Copaiba as a good immune support opportunity. Now to make some more sense of this, for me, I can use the On Guard tablet anytime I want to during the day. My wife and I have been using them while we've been here. I would use the On Guard capsule, preferably in the morning or perhaps the early afternoon. I would use the Copaiba capsule when I go to sleep at night. And the reason why is because your immune system is most active at night, while your body is repairing, regenerating, and your body's trying to overcome what it needs to. Does that make some sense for you? The other thing that we have with the Copaiba is that receptor specifically, is that it does play a really clear role in nociception, discomfort, secondary in particular to inflammation. And we know that there's multiples of pathways associated with unwanted inflammation that exist within the endocannabinoid system. And so Copaiba plays a great role for us in being able to help to manage that as well. Now there's other things here. I'm just going to give you some of these. You can look at these real quickly. I thought I'd give you some ways that you could perhaps think about using the essential oil. Combining blue tansy or yarrow plum, for example, is really wonderful to apply over the area where you're having some discomfort or where your body needs to have some changes. Dilute for localized absorption. Not because it's a problem, not because it's challenging. We dilute because we want to localize the response. Now I know that raises a lot of questions and a lot of eyebrows. Sorry. That is the best way to use that oil. Not always. It depends on what you want to do. If I want whole body effects, I want it to absorb into the tissues and have a systemic benefit. I don't want to dilute an essential oil. If I want to localize the benefit, hold it in the tissues where I applied it, have enzymatic reactivity take place where I applied it, then I want to dilute. it's less of a safety issue and more of a delivery issue. And we have this tendency to always talk about essential oils. Well, we have to be safe, and so we have to dilute. Hogwash. Sorry if I'm offending any of you. Let's learn what we know in doTERRA and utilize it fully. Now, oregano in your eye is not going to be good. Oregano, one time I did a meeting in California, and everybody had Band-Aids on their face. I don't understand what's happening here. True story. And so after lecturing for a few hours, I took a short break, and I was asking one of the leaders who were there, what's with the Band-Aids? And he's like, I might have made a mistake. I told him oregano was a good face wash. Yeah, you made a mistake. So there are oils that we want to dilute for comfort's sake. But be mindful of localized effect versus systemic effect and systemic benefit. Here's some other ways you can use that. I'll just let you take a picture of that real quickly. And then lastly, here's some things you can do for broader based, more systemic benefits, some oils you can combine Copaiba with. And I just don't have time to go into all of the details on that. Can we talk about one more essential oil real quickly? I want to talk with you about turmeric. Now, turmeric is one of my favorite essential oils. I was happy when we launched turmeric. I thought to myself as we were having this discussion, we've needed this for a long time. It fills a very specific hole for us in doTERRA, and it has very specific outcomes associated with it. We also knew and recognized at that time that while we wanted the tumerones that came from the essential oil, we also knew that we were leaving behind curcuminoids, which come from the botanical that we received the essential oil. This sounds very familiar, doesn't it? Frankincense and boswellic acids, tumerones, and now curcuminoids associated with turmeric. We also know that tumerones by themselves as an essential oil are highly effective, that they're absorbed readily across the membranes within the body, and that the outcomes that they provide are significant. We know that they are helpful and they're valuable in helping the body to overcome many different challenges, including things like cardiovascular health, brain function, and many others. And so we love turmeric. And how many of you are using turmeric and love turmeric? Wonderful. It's one of my favorite oils. In case you're wanting to know, I'm walking you through a routine that I adhere to myself. If you ever want to know what does Dr. Hill do, I'm explaining it to you right now. Now, let's talk about, here's a good way that you can use this. I'm applying just 1 to 2 drops. Remember, 1 to 2 drops more often is a lot of times better than 10, 20 drops singularly once or so a day. So less is more, and more often is the best, if that makes some sense, just in terms of taking advantage. One time we did a study where we looked at how are essential oils metabolized, and it's interesting. When we take an oil internally, it ramps up, becoming bioavailable very quickly, and then it tailors off fairly quickly, and then over time slows back down to nothing. If we use an essential oil topically, it's a much broader bell curve that comes up slowly but lasts for a long time and then begins to taper off. If we use oils aromatically, breathe in the aroma, it comes up quickly and then just stays there for as long as we breathe the aroma. That's one of the advantages of diffusion. We can have dilution and constant exposure by just diffusing an essential oil, because we don't ever overwhelm ourselves. We have a saturation point and we're just maintaining that. And doesn't it always make us feel better when we diffuse essential oils? Maybe one of these times I'll have an opportunity to come back and give you reasons to diffuse and be very specific about them. But for now, do it how you've been doing it. Yarrow Pom is a great way that you can use turmeric, and we're interfering with a very specific pathway for inflammation. Just know as we're talking about this that Copaiba and turmeric are very powerful means of interfering with a negative inflammatory process. Know that stimulating your immune system is one of the primary ways that we can increase that benefit. Now you're familiar with the DuoCap. We took the curcuminoids from the botanical, and we took the essential oil and all of their valuable tumerones, and we combined them in one capsule. This is what Alex DeBell came to me and said, I have an idea. Are you interested at all can I even talk about it with you? I should have just thrown him out of my office that day, shouldn't I? What a wonderful thing this is. This was groundbreaking. To this day, even though we've had this for as long as we have, nobody has repeated this. Nobody else has done this. I don't know if they can do it. I guess time will tell. But one thing for sure, when they do, they won't do it as good as we do. Now, you've heard about the value of curcuminoids. You've heard about the value of turmeric as a whole. One of the problems that we have is that curcuminoids are not readily absorbed in the body. You can go and find all kinds of supplements talking about, and you're wasting your money. You're going to receive little to no benefit. They're just not readily bioavailable. Alex's idea was, I think if we combine them specifically with the tumerones, it's the whole essential oil, but that's the chemistry that we were looking at. The tumerones and the curcuminoids together, I think we can solve the bioavailability problem. We did a clinical study, and that's exactly what we found. And in fact, we increased the bioavailability by more than 700%, which means for the first time, we have a supplement that we can take where we have an essential oil, and we also have the benefits that are coming from the botanical. This was the beginnings of our thought process of how those two interplay one with another. And so we have a very targeted solution now with the turmeric. We of course have the essential oil, but once again, for systemic or whole body response, I want you to think about using the turmeric capsule. Here's the ultimate combination in my mind for helping to control. Now, of course, you can use whatever you would like to topically. For example, our Deep Blue Stick has Copaiba blended within it. And by the way, we make strong drug claims on that product. We have drug claims on the Deep Blue Stick. I can tell you, if you have pain, use the Deep Blue Stick because of how powerful and beneficial it is. We've received that approval, and it's a wonderful thing to be able to say. So use things that you're accustomed to using, but here's your daily routine. I want you to, in the morning, take 1 or 2 turmeric capsules. Now, I do mine with my VMG, and it makes a big difference for me. Even though I still have some of my challenges, it makes a big difference for me. I've been in my own 8-year challenge with something very specific, and this is how I've controlled and managed it and how I now stand without any detectability within that circumstance. And so I'm very grateful for these products and what they do for us. Frankincense, the capsule, is something that you can do midday. Just make it a part of your routine, 1 or 2 capsules midday. And then Copaiba is something that we will do in the evening before bedtime. For me, this has made all the difference in the world. You can use, of course, the turmeric or the Copaiba topically as you need to. Don't forget about your citrus oil. Develop those habits that in a daily way will help you to improve something that is underlying for each and every single one of us. I have enjoyed immensely my time with you. I cannot wait until I have the opportunity to be back with you again